I mean, so what you're saying is that the person who actually did the jump off was Voice of San Francisco, aka Marina Times editor Susan Dyer Reynolds.
Yes,
she's the person who jumped it off.
Yeah, she kicked it off.
And so, like we now know that Garry Tan is behind Voice of San Francisco. Like we know that he's the primary funder.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah, like so Gotham by the Bay is Stanley Roberts, right? Mm-hmm. And Stanley Roberts is also connected to Susan Dyer Reynolds and Garry Tan.
Yep.
So I mean, like, so it sounds to me that the primary person that actually said, okay, go and attack him is Garry Tan. And my question is, what would Garry Tan's problem with you be? Why would he have a problem with you?
Probably because I was, and let me tell you, so this is really funny. So my old chief of staff, Lee Hansen, wonderful woman, got a lot of shit that is really unfair to her. But she actually, very early in the Thao administration, she recognized who the power players were and who was like, kind of manipulating the market, stuff like that. So she, in her own personal capacity, reached out to Garry Tan and was like, hey, I would love to meet with you. Like, let's just talk about this, right? And he was like, I will not meet with you until you fire Brandon Harami.
Whoa.
Yeah. And when she brought this up to me, I was like, I've never even spoken to Garry as a person. It probably comes from the online discourse. He's blocked me since day one. I've never spoken to the guy or anything like that. But he obviously saw me as a threat, as some sort of threat. And little old me, I think they over attack me as like some sort of, evil manipulator behind the scenes when really I'm just a guy, I'm just a guy. And yeah, I'm outspoken, but it's not like I have access to like a multi-million-dollar pack like they do or anything like that. I'm just, I'm just a guy.
Right. And so how did you get involved with the mayor? How, like what was that relationship like?
Yeah. So I was very involved in the California Democratic Party. I was the vice chair for the Progressive Caucus. For the Bay Area, we did a lot of work trying to reform the party. We got some movement, but not nearly as much movement. But I made a lot of relationships across the state, which I still have, and I'm very grateful for. And I was meeting people who are delegates to the party, and Thao was one of the delegates. I met her through there, and when she won her council race, a friend of mine who worked for another council member recommended that I apply for her office. She's like, I think you two will get along really well. And she was right. We did get along really, really well. And so I applied to be her comms director in 2019, got the job, started working for her. And then I fell in love with Oakland. I was living in San Francisco at the time, and I would come out here and I would, do events and go out to the parks and do cleanups and all this other stuff. And I was like, man, one, I felt, part of me was like, I don't really feel comfortable being a public servant for the people and not living in the community that I represent. So pandemic hit, I was, stuck at home in San Francisco. But the moment sort of things the pandemic's still going on, but when things kind of opened up and we got vaccines, I was like, okay, I'm moving to Oakland. So I moved. I'm over by kind of like the Grand Lake area, and I snagged a really cute apartment, really ugly on the outside, but really cute on the inside, as you can see. And I keep getting asked by even some San Francisco politicians, like, can you move back? We miss you and stuff. And I'm like, I'm not leaving this weather. and one thing I love about Oakland compared to San Francisco is when I walk around my neighborhood or any neighborhood in Oakland, people will either look you and I and nod at you, or they'll say hi. Everyone's very welcoming. I feel like a lot of the gentrification in San Francisco took away that soul, and it's still there. There's still pockets of that, right? San Francisco still has the pockets of culture, but I feel like the gentrification has really changed San Francisco, and some of that lives on, and some of that same energy lives on in Oakland. It's always lived on, right? This is the cultural hub of the Bay Area, and now my focus is like, okay, we need to make sure that we preserve this in Oakland. This is so important. And so I came out here, worked for the city council, and then when she won the mayor's race, I moved over to the mayor's office, and still proud of the work we did. And I think she was given the short end of the stick in many ways, but she'll have her own day in court, and I'm optimistic that she'll come out on top.
Yeah. I really wanted to get into Thao and just like, I mean, because I feel like she didn't get a chance.
She didn't. No.
I mean, she got like half a term and wasn't able to. I mean, honestly, in your opinion, if she would have been given the chance to govern like she should have been able to, do you think what would she have accomplished? Do you think she would have been a great mayor?
Well, let's look at the results right now, because Barbara Lee has only been mayor for a few months. I think she's doing a good job, but she's only been mayor for a few months. So when Thao was in office, homicides and crime in the first let's say 6-7 months, they were going up, and this was a continued trend from 2020. If you look at the crime stats, it's been pretty brutal. And one distinct thing that happened with Thao that Schaaf didn't have to deal with is Schaaf didn't have to make a lot of cuts because she got an influx of federal funding to cover the budget. That money ran out the year that Thao started. So she was already walking in, has to make these huge cuts. And so she balanced the budget without laying anyone off, which is pretty impressive, I would have to say. And that's because she is very talented. She understands the budget really well. Something people don't realize is that she was a city hall expert. She understood how everything worked because she worked there for 10 years. But let's look at the results now, right? Homicides are down. Crime is down. 911 call times are up to 70% on time versus like 47% when Thao came into office. We're investing a record amount to affordable housing. We have over $500 million of investments to the port. We have the urban forest plan, the vegetation management plan passed. All these big things happened, but she was not given an opportunity. When you're in elected office, the change you make is not immediate, right? And she was not given the opportunity to show. And now that everyone's saying like things are so much better in Oakland, but no one would dare acknowledge that it was Thao who did it. And I think a lot of that has to do with like, the very obvious and big FBI raid that was against her. Like, that was pretty crazy, and nothing could have predicted that. But if that had not happened, I think she would have survived the recall, and she would still be mayor today. If that didn't happen, I think she would have survived the recall, and I think everyone had agreed pre-raid that she would survive it.
Oh wow! So then, what did she have in the works that she didn't get to go through with that you guys were working on together? I mean, what if she hadn't been recalled? What would we have seen?
Yeah, I mean, well, one, you wouldn't have seen this last budget that passed was quite disappointing. It's really hard right now. I don't necessarily blame anyone for having to make cuts, right? Mm-hmm. You have to make cuts in this budget because, OPD gets a raise every year. Overtime is up through the roof. We're not collecting as much in downtown office taxes or real estate transfer taxes because no one's buying or building right now. Despite record permitting reform and upzoning in Oakland, there's no financing to build anything. So no one's going to build anything. So you can't collect those tax revenues. And then the other one is the hotel and like tourism funding. And a lot of people blame that in a decline in tourism, which is true. There is a decline in tourism, especially with Trump right now. It's kind of crazy, but it also is a decline in the conferences because now we've moved to this remote system. You can see that there aren't as many conferences now because we can just Zoom each other. Why would I fly all the way out to Oakland for a conference when I can just Zoom you? So those are factors that no matter who was mayor, they would have to deal with, and they would have to make cuts. However, this budget that just passed now, it was rushed. It was rushed through. I have never seen a budget pass this fast since Lauren Taylor had a very strong and powerful position on the city council with the equity caucus, and they rushed a budget through. But I think you would have had more time to fix some of the problems that people were concerned about. I don't think the cultural affairs grant manager would have been cut by Thao. I definitely know that she would have been done everything she could to save and protect that position. I also think Oakland Animal Services would not have received just one of the most brutal cuts that it could possibly had because it was already cut before. Mm-hmm. And now they're like, people are really mad at Oakland Animal Services for changing policies, but it really has to do with the fact that city council cut their budget to the bone. And I don't blame the city council for cutting things. I blame them for rushing through a budget without giving people the time to look at the details and provide feedback because now they're rushing to fix things, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's what happened with the cultural affairs thing, right? I mean, like they take the money back and then Carol Fife comes in and goes, put it back. And they're like, oops, sorry. And they put it back.
And Carol has been explicit that like, hey, we're fixing, like she brought this up during the Oakland Animal Services thing. She's like, I find it really, this is me not an exact quote, but she said something along the lines of like, it's really hard or it's really ridiculous that this council is like rushing to try to fix these problems when these problems were caused by our budget cuts themselves. And I really felt for Joe DeVries, who is a city administrator who's in charge of Oakland Animal Services, because he was getting a lot of flack for something that really isn't his fault. It's the council's fault. And they called him like, Joe, come in. When people were all yelling at the council and stuff, they were like, oh, Joe, come talk to these people about it. I'm like, no, you should be brave enough to say, hey, the reason this is happening is because the council cut the budget.